Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Academy Governor Bill Croyer.
Hey, it's Animated Features Night at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. It's your favorite night, right? How many people paid to see an animated feature in a movie theater this year? Well, yes, as advertised, I am Bill Croyer. I am the chair of the Short Films Feature Animation branch of the Academy, along with my fellow governors, John Bloom, Tom Cito, and Jennifer U. Nelson. And once again, we're here to honor 5 fantastic films. So let's start the first of our many applauses for our fantastic nominees right here. So this is our 17th year giving this award, and it's the 10th year we've had this night. So you may be thinking 90th Oscars, 17 years of Animated Feature Award. What was happening before that? Well, think back to those old days of Little Mermaid and Lion King and Toy Story, when the animated features were some of the best reviewed, most popular, highest grossing films of the year, and they just didn't get any love from the Best Picture category. So why was that? Well, it's not that hard to figure when you look at the statistics of the Academy. You know, 94% of our members work in live action. So they don't really understand or relate to what we do in animation. You know, we've gotten awards for animated films for sound and score. Occasionally we get a screenplay nod. Wouldn't it be awesome if an animated feature got an Academy Award nomination for production design or editing or cinematography or something like that? So one thing we're doing in our branch is we're trying to get that message out to our fellow members in the Academy. And I think we're having some success at that. We have had increasing requests from other members to join the nominating committee for this award. And this year we had record numbers and everything. We had a record number of people on the committee. Over 780 members participated, and we had representatives from every single branch. And you're probably wondering how that works. Well, we take all the films and all the nominees, we divide the films up into 3 groups, and then we give 1/3 of the voting members each of one of the groups. Every member has to watch every film in their group. That way we're assured that every film is seen by an equal number of Academy voters. And the process seems to be working because once again we have a fabulous slate. What I would say is a pretty, again, hard to categorize slate of animated feature film nominations. We have 5 different studios represented. Of course, we have Boss Baby, Ferdinand, and Coco as our CG animated films. All CG animated, but let's face it, very different stories, very different looks, very different tones. We have a 2D animated feature, The Breadwinner. You know, with a story that I think you'll all agree is as touching and profound as anything our live action counterparts have done. And then we have a film that we looked at, we went, how'd they do this? And we had to kind of go back to the original rule of the animated feature. And if you don't know, this is what it is. It's a film that's not defined by how it looks, but how the performances of the main characters are created. The performances must be achieved by frame animation technique. That means that rotoscoping and motion capture and puppetry are not an animated film. So we actually had people from our committees go in and take a very close look at the process that they used, and we went, oh my God, these people actually sat and hand-painted every frame. And when they were painting it, they actually determined the facial expressions and the gestures, and they did these performances by frame, and that's why we have our 5th nominee, Loving Vincent. So let's get to the fun of hearing from our fabulous creators. You know, in keeping with tradition, we've invited last year's Oscar winners in this category to host the evening, and that would, in this case, that would be the co-directors and the producer of that magical and hilarious worldwide sensation, Zootopia. Hold that. Unfortunately, co-director Rich Moore and producer Clark Spencer are sick tonight. So going solo, piloting this whole thing solo, will be the other co-director who started his career as a real animator, yes, animating on things like Mulan and Lilo and Stitch, and went on to co-direct Bolt, and then he co-directed Tangled, and then he co-directed Zootopia. Matter of fact, the ascending arc of his box office numbers makes me wonder what's going to happen next. But where's that going to go? But tonight he's here. So please welcome the talented and effusive Byron Howard.
Thanks, Bill. Solo, my friends. You excited? I'm excited. So, Clark and Rich are working on Wreck-It Ralph 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet, and they got a virus. You get it? Oh, it's my dad joke. I don't have any kids, it's a dad joke. It's my one written joke tonight. Okay, so I'm so sorry they couldn't be here. They're so sorry and so sick. They're on the production floor, which is one floor down from where I am in development, up one floor. So I'm completely healthy. So you can shake my hand, you can say hi, we can hug, be friends, it's fine. So I love this evening almost more than any other evening in Oscar season, because tonight is the night when we get to really celebrate animation and animated filmmaking. And the nominees here tonight, it's like they've been through so much press, and they've been through years and years of production, and now they're finally here on a weekend which could completely change their lives. And so we are just going to have a nice, relaxed evening here tonight. We're going to talk about some of the films that are coming up. As Bill said, we have many, many different types of films, hand-drawn CG. And I've got some fun facts for you. Here you go. Okay, so so three different animation styles: CG, hand-drawn, and hand-painted oil rendering. We've got 5 different studios: Blue Sky, Breakthrough, Cartoon Saloon, DreamWorks, and Pixar. Produced in 6 countries: USA, Ireland, Canada, Luxembourg. Did you guys use everyone in Luxembourg? You probably did. And Poland and Britain, and 5 global locations featured in these films. We've got Small Town USA, Afghanistan, Mexico, Spain, and France. So pretty diverse. And I really, give him a hand. So, and really, this is all about the filmmakers tonight, a chance for them to kind of relax and for us to get into like what brought these films together. So here's the way it'll work. So we're going to roll a clip from each film, about like 5 or 6 minutes, and then we'll bring up the director and the directors and the producer and do a little Q&A. And at the very end of the night, the filmmakers will come up for a panel discussion. And so tonight, we're going to start with the first nominee, The Boss Baby. So roll the clip.
Hello, it's time for my 3 stories, 5 hugs, and special song. How about 1 story, 3 hugs, and my special song? Just my special song? Mom? Dad? Hey, what happened to bedtime?
We'll have it on Monday, Mr. Francis.
Don't cry! Don't cry! Hello?
I'm making great progress with the parents already. Well, the usual procedure: sleep deprivation, hunger strikes. They're very disoriented. I've got them eating out of the palm of my hand. They do everything for me. It's hilarious. But I think the kid might be onto me. No, I can handle him. I know how important this mission is to the company.
Mission?
Well, trust me, ma'am. You've got the right baby for this job.
Hands up, devil baby!
Fart poop duty! I've got to deal with the KID.
You can talk!
Goo goo gaga.
No, you can really talk. I heard you.
Fine. I can talk. Now let's see if you can listen. Give me a double espresso and see if there's some place around here with decent sushi. I'd kill for a spicy tuna roll right about now. Get yourself a little something.
Who are you?
Let's just say I'm the boss.
The boss. You're a baby. You wear a diaper.
You know who else wears diapers? Astronauts and NASCAR drivers, that's who. Old efficiency, Templeton. The average toddler spends, what, 45 hours a year on the potty? I'm the boss. I don't have that kind of spare time.
Well, you're the boss of me.
I am the boss of you.
No, you're not.
M2.
Are not.
M2.
Are not.
M2.
Are not.
M2.
Are not.
M2. 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 M2.
Ugh! I was here first. Just wait till Mom and Dad find out about this.
Oh, yeah? You think they'd pick you over me with your track record?
You don't know anything about me.
So that's how you want to play it, huh? Let's see. Templeton Timothy, middle name. I'm sorry. Leslie, mostly C's.
How do you know all that?
Can't ride a bike without training wheels? Even bears can ride a bike without training wheels. Leslie? DOB says you're 7.
7.5.
Power nap. You were saying?
I'm 7.5.
Exactly. You're old. It's time to make way for the next generation. It's the way of the world. You would never ask your parents for an old toy.
Lamb Lamb?
Everyone wants the hot new thing.
Lamb Lamb!
I've got fresh batteries. Boom!
Mom and Dad don't even know you. They love me.
Oh, yeah? Do the math, kid. There's only so much love to go around. It's like these beads. You used to have all your parents' love, all their time, all their attention. You had all the beads. But then I came along. Babies take up a lot of time. They need a lot of attention. They get all the love.
We could share.
You obviously didn't go to business school. Look, Templeton, the numbers just don't add up. There's not enough love for the two of us. Not enough beads to go around. And then, all of a sudden, there's no place for Tim. Tim doesn't fit anymore. Oh no! What about Tim? So keep quiet, stay out of my way, or there's gonna be cutbacks.
You can't be fired from your own family. Can you?
So please welcome to the stage director Tom McGrath and producer Ramsey Naito. Yeah, come on up, boss baby folks. Hi. Nice to- How are you? Hey Tom, how are you? Good to see you. Come on in, sit down, relax. We're gonna kick back and just chat about your movie. So before I saw your movie, I thought I knew where babies came from, and now I'm just really confused. No, that's great.
That was the whole idea, to confuse children.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. I was, earlier today I was watching that clip and I freeze framed on the "There's No Room for Timmy" shot. I love the mouth shapes on the baby so much, and even the production was so well designed and so appealing. Can you talk about like where the initial idea for the film came from?
Can I just do a shout out quick?
Sure, absolutely.
When you say the production designer, our production designer and our art director are right here in the crowd. Yeah!
Yeah.
Remember?
Production, yes.
Can I just say, do those say boss baby? There's a whole row of seats. Who has the worst seats in here?
No, you should move down.
If there's someone standing in the back, I don't know why this mic's freaking out, but there's a whole row right down here.
You got it?
Can I try this one?
Sure.
Is this one better?
That's better, right?
Anyway.
Yeah, maybe talk about the original book, where that was adapted from, or like where the original.
Yeah, I think what was Marla Frazi's book, which was a 10-page book, was the impetus of all this, And for me, I took a baby from Megamind and put 30 Rock, Alec Baldwin, and that sold the movie basically in a second. And Marla's like little baby in a suit was just so fascinating. But when we started developing this movie, you know, I come from 2D. I started back in 1986, and for me, CG, although most of the films I've done been in CG, it's always trying to get it to what we used to be able to do hand-drawn. And so, like, with the talent of all the artists, when we set out to do this, it's like, let's design it on paper, let's do as much as we can on paper, and let's study as much of the great animation as we can. For me, it's Wisecracking Duck, which is Bob Clampett. If anyone has ever seen it, it's like some of the best funny animation, and the animators just are hungry for it, and they wanted to learn it, and they wanted to do a film like that. And even though, you know, in the US 2D is dried up, we had the opportunity of like, let's see if we can get as close as we can to what we used to do by drawing it.
No, it's really beautifully done, and just like that, you just appreciate. It's such a vast movie too. You have many locations, and the baby world. Do you have a name for the baby world? Is there a name for baby world?
Core.
Baby, oh yeah, baby core. It's all very unique, and you blended it in such an interesting way. So I was going to ask you guys about whether Alec Baldwin was in your mind from the beginning, but obviously he was, and he's perfect. You know, but did that just come from like Glengarry Glen Ross? Was that part of where that came from, or?
Yeah, Glengarry Glen Ross. I mean, I think I'd worked with him on a Madagascar movie. He played this lion, Makunga, and he was just so funny. It was like he would be great. Marla Frazee then emailed Damon Ross, who found the book, and said like, I think Alec Baldwin would be good at this. And so everyone, Jeffrey Katzenberg's on the same.
Oh, microphone.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Is this better?
You repeat that?
Okay, sorry. Anyway, it wasn't important. But no, you know, we were talking about Alec, but you know, to us, the linchpin in the whole movie was the kid and Tim Templeton, and so Miles Bakshi is the grandson of Ralph Bakshi.
I was gonna
Ralph
ask.
Bakshi gave me my first job in animation, so I got to return the favor by giving Miles Bakshi his first job. He was 10. Go ahead.
Miles is the son of my best friend.
Really?
Who was married to Preston Bakshi.
Oh,
Which is kind of weird.
It's all very.
That's all very good.
It's a math puzzle, but you know, I'm sure Darla and I know Lee's not here because they had a child actor as well. But Miles started when he was 10. He finished when he was 15.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we told Gina, his
strict
mom.
soy diet.
Yeah, soy, no
grill.
sports, no sunlight, and finished the movie.
No, I remember that because when we were doing Lilo and Stitch, the little girl who played DeVay Chase, who played Lilo, as she, you know, these take a long time. Because how long were you guys on this film altogether? Would you say
6 years.
6
for
years?
me.
About 4.
4 years. It's a
And
long time.
when Alex started, he was just starting a new family.
Oh, yeah?
And then over the course of the movie, he had
too.
3 children.
Oh wow.
So he had a lot of reference.
Well, it's a very inspiring movie because
yeah.
you're talking about this. Like, that gives me an idea. They said as I watched the film.
Yeah, who inspired who? I guess to babies, but it was fun, and you know, I got to say, you know, a lot of people. We're sitting up here representing the movie,
And the crew.
and
amazing
the
crew.
crew is like, most of you work in animation, probably maybe, but it's like 400, 500 people it takes to make one of these movies.
We should add India as
Oh, it's true.
Yeah,
another
India as
country
well.
that
That's
worked
true.
on this film as well. So.
It's a very globe-trotting industry now, which is pretty amazing. Was there something that surprised you about the production as you were going through it? Something that, like, was the story pretty consistent from beginning to end, or was there any big shift as you went?
Not really. We were the inverse of normally how we do things, which like production is hungry for story, but story's never ready. Yeah. And so we spent the time developing the script, and so it was production actually keeping up with the story we had developed, and it hadn't really changed since our first screening so much. It just got better.
Michael McCullers wrote the draft, and it was always very solid. The story it kept intact through the whole process. As we put it up on screen, we were able to watch it many, many times. As you know, we were able to refine and plus and add all the jokes and develop it even more. But the script was very solid.
Well, I was impressed with how you guys, it comes off as a very funny film when you see the ads for it, and that's what I was expecting going in, but you guys did an excellent job with the brother relationship. I was just very taken with that, and that has a lot to do with, Miles' performance, and it just really comes across as very, very genuine. And so, but that, as far as the source material, like the book, was that in the book to begin with?
Not really. For me personally, the book is about the metaphor when a baby comes into a parent's life, it's the boss. It'll order you around, scream in the middle of the night, hold meetings, and that kind of, which is a funny idea. And getting together with Michael, we were like, oh, this would be a great sibling rivalry story. And can we do something kind of emotional with it? They say that laughter is the doorway to the heart because it makes people vulnerable. And can we sneak something in there at the end? So the end was thought out first. It's like, let's do a piece, and boarded it, the ending without any dialogue. And it's like, can we earn this moment through the rest of the film? So we actually designed it from the end of where we wanted to go. And so we wanted to disguise it with comedy, but actually have something with a little bit of heart to it. Yeah. And if you ever had a brother or sister, you know that they could be your worst enemy and your best friend as you grow up in life. And for my brother and I, we made it through that war on the other side, and we ended up being the closest bond you can have. And it's like, oh, well, that's interesting. If love and respect can start at home in the family and then go out from there, it's the grassroots campaign of love.
Are you the older brother? Or
I'm the boss baby.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's an autobiographical. I
When
got you.
Tom and I have known each other for almost 20 years, and I was living in New York, and Tom sent me the script, and we talked about the movie, and he was like, "This is a love letter to my brother," and it really, I so identified with that, and it just grabbed me emotionally, and I'll never forget the moment he showed the movie to his brother for the first time. And literally, I was handing him tissues. He was just crying, and he was just hugging his brother, hugging Tom. So.
And then we fought.
Yeah.
But
well, there was that.
There were punches.
Yeah.
But with Ramsey, Ramsey has 3 boys, and so she lives it every day.
They have
so
their
that
own
helps.
sibling now.
How old are your boys?
I have a 19-year-old, a 15-year-old, and an 8-year-old.
Wow.
So they're very, but there's lots of sibling rivalry in that spread. Just because they're far apart doesn't mean that they don't. They aren't afraid that they're going to get less attention, you know. So it was how I identified with Boss Baby as a mother.
Definitely.
And that emotional core, so.
Yeah, no, it was really excellent. And you were talking about the comic timing, which I thought was excellent all the way through. So can you talk about how you're saying that studied the old classics? I thought the animated timing and the sensitivity to acting was just excellent throughout the whole thing. Can you did you have like stunt babies? Did you bring in babies to study? Were there?
We actually brought in puppies to study, but
we had a puppy day.
And but you can't put the ping pong balls on a baby and put them on a mocap.
Oh, you can.
Oh, you can.
Yeah, you can just say they don't know what's going on. So just,
No, I think that is a testament to the animators, and and again back to 2D days, and a lot of them would thumbnail. Some would even hand animate their sequence. William Salazar would do that, and we'd look at it because that's how he's comfortable getting his performance, and then animate it. And Carlos Portolas, who was the head of character animation, was just fantastic. And there's so much on YouTube with babies, and babies just doing everything that you don't really need to put them in a pen or anything. You can actually watch them and try and, it's all about caricature. It's caricature. Animation is caricaturing life. And if you can do that, even though it's Alec Baldwin, then our technical challenge was baby jiggle. And there's mathematicians that had to figure out how the jiggle would move, and ultimately it ended up being in the hands of the animators.
Especially in
again.
that baby course.
really?
Yeah.
Doesn't it crack you up that there are people who could be like solving scientific problems out there in physics and space, and they're making babies jiggle or animal fat move around? It's just awesome. That's that's great. Oh, I was going to ask. I'm a huge fan of the Beatles, and I was going to ask about Blackbird and how that made its way into the film.
That was Michael McCullers. He used to sing that to his kids.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
And then Mary Blee, I think one of our editors right here, used to sing it to her kids. And everyone who worked on the show
So
would go
many.
like, I sing
did.
that to my kids, and
Yeah.
I sing that to my kids. And the idea was originally going like, oh, we could get an original lullaby, it'd be great, but it just felt so honest that people actually sing this, and it was more of a matter of like, how are we going to get the Beatles? How are we going to get licensed sets?
How was it to get the Beatles? Was that very difficult? I imagine it's probably very difficult.
It was actually slightly easy. I mean,
We pitched in the movie, and it's
yeah,
about
it was-
love, and
they loved it. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah, it was. You know, we didn't have an issue, which was surprising.
Good for the Beatles.
Yeah,
I still
good
like the
for the
Beatles.
Beatles,
I'm
yeah.
very, very happy about that. As you took the movie around the world, did you notice a reaction difference from country to country, like as you visited different places as far as how they reacted to the film? Like, I know that some places comedy plays better than others. Where is it?
it's interesting because these films now are, they're translated in 60 languages. But the rule, I remember Hal Ambro, I think, was my animation teacher, and he just said, like, animation, what makes it great is you should be able to follow the story with the sound turned off. And that's the joy of animation. It's not about just talking heads. It's actually like emoting and business and visual storytelling, so that you can turn the sound off and actually enjoy it like a silent movie. But I think in different countries they have different jokes that work better for them, so they actually translate it to a different. I don't think they'll get Glengarry Glen Ross, as much as like they'll find a different thing for the cookie. You know what I mean? And so as long, and you leave it up to what works in their country. But everyone in the world has been a baby or a parent, so we had that on our
That's
side.
true.
Now,
That's
the
very
movie wasn't premiered officially in China. Yeah. Although I had lots of friends in China who were sending me posters in Chinese, and but it did premiere very well in Taiwan and in Korea, and because of that, we were able to enter into more Asian markets, and we're premiering in Japan in a couple weeks.
Oh, great.
So that was kind of, I think, an interesting part of the business, I guess, for the movie.
Are there Alec Baldwin sound-alikes in all these different countries? When you dub for all these different places,
There are sound-alikes for everybody. Every actor has their culturals, and they, I don't know what, I'm not going to do an impression of it, but I mean, it sounds like the voice. Yeah, deep voice, but in a different language.
And it's typically, from what I know too, it's like there's usually one guy or one actor or actress who does like Nicolas Cage overseas in Japan, and so it's the same kind of thing. So I was just curious if there was like one. But
yeah. But I think they do all the movies like
30 Rock.
that is, yeah.
Oh, true.
So whoever does 30 Rock in Swedish is doing 30 Rock in Australia.
True, I gotta watch that. So we're about out of time. I just want to say again, congratulations on the nomination. Amazing film. I loved it so much. So once again, thanks for Tom and Ramsey. And we're gonna go to a clip of The Breadwinner next.
Woo!
So thank you guys.
Hey, Nora.
For following me now.
Thank you, everybody.
Diddle-lad! Well, have you remembered your name yet?
I don't think I can go on this.
Too bad, I could use some help.
I saw something.
What do you want me to say?
I should have helped.
You'd have helped yourself to a good whipping, that's all.
But I'm not a boy.
You're not a boy, you're not a girl. Now I need a helper because this tray is too heavy. Will you help? Ooh, scratch my nose quickly. If I let go of the tray, the strap will break. Oh, that's better.
Atesh.
What?
I remembered my name. It's Atesh.
That's not really a name.
It means fire.
I know what it means, but it's still not a name.
Then it suits me fine.
I'll call you Atesh then. When you're a boy, you can go anywhere you like. Atesh Khan.
Where are we going?
You'll see. usually just pretend I work here. If you look like you believe it, then they will too. See? We're cleaners. What are you waiting for? It's either ours or they might eat it.
I need to find a way to see my Baba.
You can have mine if you like. I don't want him.
My father was taken to prison, and we've heard nothing of him since.
They won't let you see him, Parwana.
But I'm a boy now.
It doesn't make a difference. They'll keep him or let him go, but there's nothing you can do about it.
You don't know that.
I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. There might be a way, but you'll need lots of money.
What for?
You can get a lot done with bribes. A lot.
Anything red then? Anything red? Pashto Dari. Wonderful items for sale. Anything red then? Anything red? Anything red then? Anything red?
What happened to the man who used to sit here? It is a simple question.
Don't you know?
How should I know? Answer the question. Where is he?
He left for Mazar-e Sharif.
And what are you to him?
I'm his nephew. Atesh.
Do you know how to read?
Do you have something to read? I read Pashto and Dari.
Read this. Let's see if you're any good. Come on, take it out of the envelope.
Dear Razak.
Louder, or I will have to take my business elsewhere.
Dear Razak, I hope this letter reaches you in Kabul. I'm writing to you with sad news. I am sorry to tell you that Khala Begum died on the way to her sister's wedding. The bus she was traveling on hit a landmine. Her injuries were too great to bear, and she died some hours afterward. I know this must be a great shock to you, but please note that when I last spoke to Hala, she told me of your kindness toward her. May Allah bless you now, guide your path, and give you courage. I'm sorry.
Amazing. So please welcome the filmmakers from Breadwinner, director Nora Twomey and producer Anthony Leo. Come on up. Hi, Nora. Nice to meet you. Hi, Anthony. Congratulations. Come on in. That's amazing. That scene was really effective. I found your film really remarkable, and even looking at that scene again, the choices that you were making, keeping the camera down low so you don't see his face at all when he gets the news, and just the subtlety. And it really is amazing to me that animation can do that. It's these symbols that we see on screen, just the drawings or colors or shapes, and the fact that you can get so much emotion into the storytelling. And just in the film in general, the fact that I felt so much anxiety for these young women in this situation was really compelling. So can you talk about the source of the movie, where it came from, where the ideas first came from, the source material? Or?
Yeah, well, maybe you want to talk about that, Anthony, because you're the first one who came across it.
Sure. Well, the Breadwinner was written by Deborah Ellis, a Canadian author, and it was actually written for 10 to 13-year-olds. And I came across it. I was on a trip with a bunch of different families, and coincidentally, one of the 9-year-old girls in our group was reading the book, and after dinner one night, she asked her mom to read aloud
from the book. They were just starting it, and slowly but surely, everyone, there was a big 15 people in our group, like from 9 to 65, and we all got sucked into this story. And over the course of the week, we read the entire thing after dinner every night, and it was this real authentic storytelling experience, the traditional storytelling experience that I hadn't had since kindergarten probably. And so it really stood out. And so a couple of years later, we were meeting, my producing partner Andrew Rosen and I were meeting with the book publisher, and she brought out The Breadwinner, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's the book that like we were all so captivated with. And so we optioned the rights, and we started to develop it as a live action film originally, because that's mostly what our company, Aircraft Pictures, had done until that point. And started to, as we were developing it, the script, it really became clear that if we wanted to keep it relevant and accessible to that 10 to 13-year-old audience, that, you know, a lot of the live action depictions of some of the events that are in the movie would be really hard to take, even for adults. And so we made the choice to make it an animated film. And, you know, we looked to, at the time, films that really inspired us on the animation front, things like Persepolis and The Secret of Kells. And so we thought, let's go talk to Cartoon Saloon. They were on the top of our list as far as potential partners, and had the chance to meet with Paul Young and Jerry Sheeran, who are here as well, from Cartoon Saloon, and you know, shared the material with them. Nora got the chance to read the book, and apparently read it in one sitting, in one night as well. So we were right from the beginning kind of, you know, both very passionate about the project, and our two companies decided to co-produce together. And
that's great. And for Nora, did it feel, I know you worked on Secret of the Kells and Song of the Sea before, the two beautifully illustrated fairy tales. How did it feel to you to go to something that was so visceral and real?
It felt right, you know, honestly. I mean, yeah, I've been, you know, watching the news over the last, you know, 20 or more years, I guess, and feeling helpless, you know, I guess. And also I was trying to, I guess, form my own opinions around everything that happened in Afghanistan, everything that happened around the world since 9/11 even, you know, or since 2000 when Deborah first wrote that book. And before that, I remember the Taliban regime and you know, watching it from afar. So the opportunity to be able to explore something like that and to be able to bring on Afghan people so that we could start a discussion. You're talking about the scene there that seemed just right, but we'd gone through so many iterations just because of different conversations with people from different religious perspectives, different ethnicities within Afghanistan and outside, you know, just to try and get that right. You know, we had versions of that scene where Razak cried, and then we talked to people who had done that horrendous journey from Afghanistan across the Mediterranean and into Europe, and they talked about how cheap life was, you know, in ways, you know. So with all of that, eventually things get all the corners knocked off to a point where it just feels right in your heart and in your guts, I guess. But before that, you have all of these incredible conversations and stories that you could never put in this film, but they inform it in some way, and they helped us all as storytellers to craft this.
I mean, it's amazing how much humanity I think you imbue in the characters in the film, and it really does. I think the fact that it is animated allows you to, you know, maybe reach a wider audience or let people kind of see in a somewhat more palatable way, where you can appreciate like the horrific conditions that some people have to live through. And but it felt like you read the book in one night. So you had that connection right away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I felt a character that I wanted to follow, and I felt I could follow. I had been Tom's co-director on The Secret of Kells, and he's had a story on Song of the Sea, but this is the first time I ever felt this was something that I felt I could do in a way that did justice to the source material and did justice to actual stories of actual young girls wherever they are in the world, you know. So that was, I felt I was led. And then, of course, having a performance like Sarah Chowdhury, who's here in the audience, I think, tonight.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, hey.
There.
Amazing job, yeah. Really, really great.
So, I mean, that's half the job, if not more. You know, bringing home a performance like that to animators. You know, they understood and believed that character as much as Sarah did, because they had her warm, intelligent performance to go from.
Yeah, it's so good. Could you talk about that casting process? It must have been so important, because the movie just like centers on her. So how was that search for you?
For me, it was really easy. I was just, but for Merlin Ridley, the casting director, it was much more difficult. When we first began discussions with Angelina Jolie, she asked us to find as many Afghan actors as we could for the parts, and we were saying, well, it's a co-production with soft finance raised in Canada and Ireland and Luxembourg, and where you raise the finance, you have to spend it, so we can't go to Afghanistan, and even if we did, I don't think I could, because I'd be putting people in danger and all the rest of it. So, but she said, yeah, but try, So Merlin put posters up in Afghan markets around Toronto, and about half our cast are Afghan, and then most people in our cast have stories. Their parents come from someplace else, or they have some kind of an understanding that just informs it. The characters with Sarah's performance, I wouldn't look at the actors when they were auditioning. I would look at for that first round of auditions, I would just listen to the voices and look at the characters, and I would just press play, and I heard Sarah's, and it was just incredible, absolutely incredible. So Dara, my editor, listened to it as well, and we just knew there was just one Parvana.
Well, excellent choice and excellent performance. Can you talk about a little bit how Angelina Jolie got involved in the first place? I mean, it feels like her humanitarian efforts fit exactly in with what you're trying to do with the film.
There had been these weekly discussions with all our producers and executive producers via conference call to try and I think we had the financing together at that point.
Yeah, we were pretty much fully financed, and we had been working with a bunch of different financiers with CAA. They had introduced us to Jahan Nujaim and Karim Amer, who had produced and directed The Square, the documentary, and were from Egypt, and they were helping us kind of close that little gap. And there was a lot of different ways. We ended up through CAA, through them, through another executive producer, Mimi Polk-Gitlin, who's here tonight too, just trying to reach out, and as one does when they're trying to kind of get the interest of someone at her caliber. And eventually Jahan and Karim had a meeting with her to talk about a number of other projects, and they said, you really have to look at The Breadwinner. And she read the script and was immediately in, and wanted to meet Nora, and he flew over from Ireland, and that was that. So it was great.
That's excellent. I mean, it's such an affecting film. I mean, has this started conversations in places that you've shown the film about young people's situations in the Middle East, having to deal with the effects of war?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think young girls, no matter where they grow up in the world, I think deal with issues, and whether they can be really subtle or they can be very blatant, So I mean, this film kind of speaks to all of those, within that. So it's been interesting, certainly. I remember at one point we watched the film in Washington, D.C., when we had Rula Ghali, the First Lady of Afghanistan, on one side of me, and on the other side we had a young woman called Shabana, who runs a girls' school in Kabul, but she had dressed as a boy in order to accompany her older sister to a secret school during the Taliban era. So to watch the film, so with all of these people who have stories that they continue telling stories, and sometimes the film prompts more stories and memories and that, and some things I think they can't be talked about directly. So because they can be so traumatic for people and for families. Certainly for some of our cast members who watched the film during our cast and crew screening, one of our cast had brought their father with them, who had left Afghanistan during the communist invasion, where entire villages were just destroyed and never came back. Entire people were taken, and you can never talk about that in ways that will where you get to retain your sanity, I guess. So stories, or having this film in ways gives a chance for people to be able to talk about things, you know, even in an indirect way, you know.
It comes across very personal. I mean, it feels very, very genuine. It feels like a intimate, real story. I was also going to ask, was it difficult for you to balance? There's so many different facets of religion and political, you know, groups over there, and different groups that have influence in Afghanistan. How did you guys manage to balance all that? Because I thought the portrayal was very balanced, and it really was more about this young woman's experience than any sort of overt politics.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of consultants that we worked with over the course of the film that really, you know, I think one of the strongest things about our team and Nora, you know, like knowing what you don't know and really reaching out to people and really wanting to learn as much as possible in the early stages of the film really paid off. You know, people were able to, there was so much, not like even just above and beyond what you would normally, you know, do your research with an animated film. You'd look on the internet, you'd look at photos of like Kabul at that time when you're doing backgrounds. But during the Taliban era, there was no photographs or film allowed. So there was literally a blackout period of when our story was taking place that we had no actual footage of to reference. And so you had animators and designers who were speaking with our consultants and like, you know, trying to piece together like before and after photos and what was existing in that time. So, you know, I think that was the biggest, one of the biggest assets, and to Nora's credit, that, you know, the film really took that seriously, that authenticity.
That's really amazing. And then maybe just, we probably have time for one more question. Can you talk a little bit? I loved the soundtrack was so evocative. Maybe you can talk about Michael and Jeff Dana's work on your soundtrack.
Yeah, they came on again fairly early with the whole process, and we're watching the animatics as we were producing them. But they also worked with the sound designer, J.R. Fountain, quite closely. So, you know, he would do a pass, they would see it and hear it, and they would use the same key. You know, they would use some of the sounds that he used for Suleiman's Cloud, for instance. They would work that into their own score. They also worked with musicians from around the world. In Afghanistan, they worked with the Nahid Women's Choir in Kabul last summer, and the week where I think over 100 people were killed from a suicide bombing. So it just an incredible experience, I think, to hear the way that this, I mean, sound anyway is 50% of the film. So between Sarah's 50% and Michael 50%, we just had to sit back. A little bit of animation. There's lots of percents. It must be, much more than 100%. So yeah, I mean, they did an absolutely incredible job. But the brief for Michael and Jeff was never to tell the audience how to feel. We didn't really want to be overly manipulative with any of this, but we wanted people to feel supported if they did feel something, you know. And so they did that. They wound in and around every other aspect of the film, but left space for silence, left space for sound design, left space for visuals, left space for the audience to catch breath as well. It's
very sensitive. Oh, and I just remembered one last thing I wanted to ask you about. It's remarkable in the 2D film that you also go into sort of the paper animation, which I think is so beautifully done. And can you talk a little bit about the technology behind that? Is it actually paper? Is it CG, or what are we seeing there?
You're seeing Moho, which is a 2D rig animation with lots of about 100 layers per character, and then another 100 per background. We did a lot of research. Janice Ossel, a 2D cutout animator, came and worked in our basement for about 6 months. And then we took everything that she did and brought it to Guru in Toronto and asked them if they could mimic that look, and they did with Nuke and with Sheldon and San, just incredible artists who worked on it and did it for a fraction of the price. So yeah.
Well, it's really, really impressive. So again, congratulations on the nomination, Nora and Anthony, everyone. Thank you. Best of luck. So, and now we're going to go ahead and roll a clip from our next nominee, Coco. Coco.
What are you doing with that? Give it to me! Miguel, stop! Miguel!
Mama Coco, can you hear me? It's Miguel. I saw your papa. Remember?
Papa? Please. If you forget him, he'll be gone. Forever. Here. This was his guitar, right? He used to play it to you? See? There he is. Papa, remember? Papa? Mama Coco, please, don't forget him.
What are you doing to that poor woman? It's okay, Mommy.
What's gotten into you? I thought I'd lost you, Miguel.
I'm sorry, Papa.
We're all together now. That's what matters.
Not all of us.
It's okay, Mamita. Miguel, you apologize to your Mama Coco.
Mama Coco?
Well, apologize.
Mama Coco, your papa, he wanted you to have this.
Mama, wait.
Remember me, though I have to say goodbye. Remember me, don't let it make you cry. For even if I'm far away, I hold you in my heart. I sing a secret song to you each night we are apart. Remember me, though I have to travel far. Remember me, each time you hear a sad guitar. Know that I'm with you the only way that I can be, until you're in my arms again. Remember me.
Elena, what's wrong, Mika? Nothing, Mama. Nothing at all. My papa used to sing me that song.
He loved you, Mama Coco. Your papa loved you so much.
I kept his letters, poems he wrote me, and Papa was a musician. When I was a little girl, he and Mama would sing such beautiful songs.
Amazing. So please welcome to the stage producer Darla K. Anderson. Darla, hi, come on up. How are you? So Darla, Lee is sick. So is he hanging out with Rich and Clark? Is he on Wreck-It Ralph 2? Ralph Breaks the Internet?
Lee is out sick.
Oh, I'm
which
so
is
sorry.
Bad timing.
So sorry. Well, congratulations on the nomination.
Thank you.
I could watch that scene all day. I love the design on the Abuela is just, she's just beautiful to look at.
Thank you.
And I gotta say, you guys, it's so easy with CG to slip into that kind of uncanny valley with kind of detail level where it's like a little creepy, but she's just so beautiful. And then I watched that scene, and I think as I was a 2D animator, but with CG, the subtlety that these artists are getting now is just remarkable, because you're talking about 2 or 3 minutes where you're seeing that woman recognize this and go through different stages of recognition, and seeing the emotion roll through her entire being, and the little cues like the hands and the mouth, and it really is stunning. And I imagine, I was going to ask you guys, when did you know that scene was going to be in the movie? Because that feels like the movie is all built around that one moment.
Yeah, we luckily had that scene quite early on, and we also took 6 years to make this film. They take a really long time, as we all know, and it's so incredibly helpful to have the ending to paint towards. So we were very fortunate to have identified this ending many years ago. And we didn't, and the thing is the one tricky thing is when you have an ending like that that's working and it's so emotional, and you keep watching it for year after year, you have to kind of remember your initial feelings when you watched it, and then all of the places you go to build towards the ending, because we don't always know the alchemy that makes it just right, and so there'd be screens where we're like, did we quite get it right? Are we pulling the string too far over here that it's not making the ending play as well as it did in some of the earlier screens? So there's all that finessing that goes on, but yeah, we were lucky to have it early.
And you've produced a lot of stuff. You've had.
I'm old.
No, she's so Bugs Life, Monsters Inc., Cars, Toy Story 3, all remarkable films. How would you say, since this centers around a true culture, how did this differ for you as you produced it?
Yeah, this film was, quite well. All of our films are, we do a lot of research. We're fortunate to do that, and we're. Care about stories so deeply, but in this case, it was set in another country and against a really specific cultural celebration, and so happily, it was very different and very exciting to do something so unique. And we traveled a lot to Mexico, and we brought in a lot of cultural consultants, 3 main ones. Which was hard for us. We brought them on quite early. And famously, our films are really not good until they are. And so, they're really, really not. And so it's, we first brought in the consultants in some of those early screenings. It's just nerve-wracking, right? I promise you, we're going to keep working on it, and we're going to get there. So it's really hard to let people in on our process in that way. But I am so glad that we did, because it was so incredibly helpful to have them as such an integral part of the process.
It was just beautifully visualized. And we go through the same thing, because we'll bring in people and consultants very early, and you don't know how people are going to read storyboards, because you guys know that we start with very sometimes very crude drawings, very scribbly drawings, cut together with scratch voices, which is like us kind of in the recording room, kind of pretending we're the characters. But you guys really did stick to your true north, and it came out beautifully. And Anthony Gonzalez, who plays your lead, can you talk about how you found him? And I heard something about his background, which I want to ask you about.
Okay. Well, Anthony, first of all, it was really important to us that we have an all-Latino cast. That was critical from the very beginning. And preferably be Mexican, Mexican-American, and be in touch with this culture and beautiful country. And so we did a huge casting call. We went to Mexico City and everywhere down, and we hired a woman, Carla Houle, who helped us with casting. She's from Mexico City. We went to everywhere. It was like probably a solid year and a half of search. And while we were doing that, one of the kids that auditioned was Anthony, and he's from here in LA. And we would fly him up to do these scratch recordings. And this kid, I don't know if any of you have seen him at all, but he and his family, they just exude love and enthusiasm and good energy. And he's also then extremely talented and has a great work ethic, and he can sing.
Yes, he performed with mariachi. You did mariachi gigs,
Yeah,
right?
since he was 4 years old. He
Which
used
is
to go
crazy.
down to Alvaro Street.
Because he was really good. I was
Yeah,
like, when I heard him
yeah.
sing in the movie, I'm like, is that kid? Or did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was very, very good.
Yeah, so he was doing our scratch. And then one day we just realized, he was doing a scratch and he had auditioned and he just kept getting better and better. And it's that power of showing up.
It's amazing. And and he probably got older as the
We really struggled with the same thing. Yeah, we were like, please.
Just pitch their voices up.
Well, and
just a
that's the
little
other
bit.
thing with casting kids in animation. You know, you can't cast them too early, and you can't, try to find that sweet spot in that 3-year range where, they aren't going to grow too old too fast, and still have the maturity to work these long sessions. So.
No, pretty remarkable. And maybe you could talk a little bit about the movie lives in two worlds: the real world and the land of the dead, which is remarkable and vast and colorful. And I love maybe you could talk about the visualization of the bridges and the traditions that surround Dia de los Muertos, and were there things early on that your VisDev people were able to kind of lock onto as far as letting you know what that world would look like?
Again, animation, we do all this research, and we travel down to Mexico quite a bit, but fortunately, we couldn't travel to the land of the dead, right? So that's like research we couldn't do. But what we knew we wanted it to be is very much like the holiday, the culture celebration, which is filled with beautiful colors and gorgeous music and a celebratory family reunion, uplifting kind of energy. And so we knew we always wanted that. And then for Dia de Muertos, when we would visit all the small villages, and as part of the tradition, the families on this one day of the year, they put marigold paths from the cemetery to the homes, so their family knows. And they crush the marigolds or cempasúchil to create the scent, so the family spirits know how to come home. And so we kept thinking that there should be a bridge between the land of the dead and the land of the living, and the marigold was always the obvious path and bridge. And one of the early artists did this beautiful, organic, alive bridge, Robert Kondo, and when we saw that, fairly early on became our true north for that as well.
Yeah, it's really amazing, and I love that tradition because it's so different. It's such a different way of looking at death and the afterlife, and it's so remarkably positive, and it's just such a nice change from, I think, what there's so much anxiety about death in this country, and thinking about something that is about remembering and connecting with your family. Like, as you were learning about the culture, did that change how you felt about your own family, or did Lee have experiences that kind of changed your outlook as you went through the film?
Yeah, I mean, it did, for sure. I mean, and also, we wouldn't be making the movie if we weren't really interested in it. And I grew up in Los Angeles, and I had spent a lot of time in Mexico, and I thought I knew more about it, than I did. And as you start digging deeper, and really focusing in on the spirit of this holiday, I learned a lot, and it did shift and deepened my perspectives on that. The onus that is on us to remember those who came before us and our ancestors, and that it is a very hopeful, optimistic message that as long as we remember our ancestors and our family, we stay connected and can have these family reunions. So, and we all started doing ofrendas in our homes and the altars, and we did them at Pixar for the last several years. And so it became this very cool thing that really shifted the whole company and all of our individual families.
One of the things I found most moving about was actually at the credits, when you guys have that assembly of, it looked like hundreds of pictures, which I assume are from your families, and it just was such a neat way to kind of put a button on that and personalize it to everyone who worked on the film. I also, in talking to friends of mine at the studio who have come from a Latino background, they were really happy about how much Spanish you left in the dialogue. And would you that have a lot of discussion around it? Like, how much do we balance that?
Yeah, the consultants, that was one of we have a very diverse team also, so it was like from all angles. Everybody really wanted to hear as much Spanish as is possible, and Gael Garcia Bernal really wanted that as well. Ben Bratt did, Anthony, everybody was like, wherever we can squeeze in some colloquialisms and things that felt, they would say, Gael would say, this is how I would say it. Can we marry that into the dialogue? And so we did, and I think all of those little touches and slang and way of phrasing things really helped bring the story home and the veracity of the storytelling.
It's funny with Gael because he was our presenter last year.
Right, yeah, that was exciting.
And then after we headed over to that Vanity Fair party, and as we arrived, he was I know, it was great. They show the Oscar and you got in. But Gael we saw him arrive in his car, and he ran up to this mariachi band that was playing out in front, and he was he was like singing at the top of his lungs. He was so proud and happy, and I can imagine being a part of this film. It's so nicely celebrates the culture, and it's pretty remarkable. And then maybe one final question: can you talk a little bit about the music is so integral to the film? Like, can you talk about experiences you might have had with Mexican musicians, or in the composition of the song, or how that kind of feathered into the film in the first place?
Yeah, we this is by far Pixar's most musical film, and so between the score by Michael Giacchino and his orchestra that he always works with happened by enormous luck to be very. He has a lot of Hispanic and Latino superstars already in his orchestra, and he brought more folks in with indigenous instruments. And then prior to even the score, we spent a whole week down in Mexico recording with every aspect of Mexican music, so that every different everything is represented, and we spent every day, all day, till midnight, 6 a.m. to midnight, recording for all the background flavors. And Michael wrote a few original songs for them to record as well down there. Then the songs, we had Kristen Anderson Lopez and Bobby Lopez write "Remember Me," which was a song that had to be played big and loud, but also small and intimate. So we were incredibly fortunate to have them bring this beautiful song. And then Adrian Molina, the co-director, because he's just so talented. He wrote the lyrics for all the rest of the songs, and this amazing woman named Germaine Franco, who is from LA. She's a composer and arranger, and she wrote all the music for it. She also worked with Michael for all of the arranging. So there was a lot of parts that went into all this music.
Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
An amazing, moving, wonderful film.
Thank you.
Darla K. Anderson.
Thank you.
Lee Unkrich, wherever he is. And now we're going to go to a clip from Ferdinand. Ferdinand clip next.
Permiso, señor. Keep pushing! You guys jump on! you go first. Just go!
Chaos in Madrid today as a group of runaway bulls stampeded through the city streets. The fiercest of the bulls was handpicked to face El Primero in his final fight.
Nina!
Amazing. So please welcome to the stage director Carlos Saldana and producer Lori Forte. Hi. Hey, Carlos. Good to see you. Congratulations. Good to see you. Hi, Lori. Come on up. Have some water and a microphone. It's free. Not the microphone, put that down. Congratulations, you guys. I love the film. It's like I was not aware that the original Ferdinand book came out in 1936, and then the Disney short, I think, was probably the only other exploration of the film, of the book that came out was only 2 years later, 1938. So, and one of the things I loved about your film is I think Blue Sky always has an amazing sense of tradition as far as like feeling like these are drawn characters that have now kind of stepped into a new dimension, and there's kind of a roundness and an appeal to Ferdinand especially, I think, that you guys really accomplished with the shape. So maybe can you talk about how was this something that was floating around in your heads for a while that you wanted to do? Did you know, was it a favorite of yours? Or?
Yeah, this, we've been working this like since I was working on Rio 2, you know, it's been like 7 years. You know, we did like 4 years of production, but like we had the idea of making the movie about 7 years ago.
But you know, it's interesting because we haven't really talked about this too much, but you started this as a movie about a boy and a bull. It started a long time ago, before even we got the rights to Ferdinand.
Yeah, and then after that, like, and then finally when we got the rights, and I knew of the book, I have kids, and I read to them, and it was and it's interesting because there's a very strong book like here in America, but not as well known, you know, in some other places, you know, like, so I'm from Brazil, so I knew of the short, but I didn't know of the book. Only when I moved to America and had children that I read to them, and then I loved the story. So when the two things converged, I wanted to do something with a bull in Spain and something like that, and then when Ferdinand came on board, you know, we got the rights. I was very excited. And then it was interesting because I had a meeting, I was mixing, I think it was mixing, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Rio, yeah, and then the family came over, and I was very concerned about it because all my movies were mostly original and created at Blue Sky. And
the family of the originators of the book.
Yeah, the family of the originators,
Yes.
because Monroe passed away. Like the book was written in '36, so they came and was interesting to talk to them because I said, look, I never done an adaptation, this would be a first time, but I love the theme. I love the message, but it's a very thin book. I needed to expand it, and I need to create new characters. I need to take to a different world, and they were all open for it, and they were very excited about the possibility of doing it. So once I got the green light from them, like when I got like, okay, this is how we're gonna do it, and they trusted my take on it, that's when I felt comfortable doing it.
That's really excellent. I heard there's some part of the Black Stallion features into the design of
the fur, because it's interesting. We're like Ice Age. We did the first Ice Age, and then we had this great fur technology that we could never apply because it's so expensive to render. Like one frame of like Scrat would be taking like a week, and then the end would crash. So so we didn't have a great fur technology. Only for Ice Age 2 that we got like the fur technology. So then we said like, oh, we have fur. So from that point on, fur was an Ivory character and all that. So Ferdinand came on board and I said, okay, let's fur on the bull, but I wanted to look like the Black Stallion. I wanted to be shiny. I wanted to have that blue sheen, I wanted to feel like right. And then so they spent like months trying to do the fur, and says, Carlos, we cannot get the right sheen. And I was looking at it, it's like, not quite. Then one of the guys like sat down, and this is one of the, we have amazing talented people there with the develop the software. Says like, let's do a texture map. And they did a texture map that emulate fur, but was all texture map. So they used the Black Stallion a lot as a reference.
It's a great movie. That's good. It's good. And then can you guys talk, did you guys...
it's cheaper too.
It worked great. Did you guys spend a lot of time in Spain? And can you talk about a little bit of the research that went into the film?
Yeah, we went, actually, Bruce is here, Bruce Anderson,
Bruce
the other
Anderson
producer.
is our other producer.
Bruce.
Who
Yeah,
really
Bruce.
should be up here too.
Where are you, Bruce?
Yeah. So
Hi, Bruce.
we went to Spain and to do a travel thing, and to just go through the research, because it's very important. Like I think this part of the process for us is crucial, because my previous move was Rio. I'm from Rio, so hey, I have the reference in my head. I lived there. So, but I brought people over so they can experience it, and I needed to go to Spain just to see it. So we did the journey of Ferdinand. We started in Madrid, drove down all the way to very hard trip. So
I didn't get to go to that one.
Oh my God, it was so much hard work there. But anyway. But we went down, and then it's just like trying to get the essence of it. It's an American story written by an American that never been to Spain.
Oh, really?
And I felt like, wow, maybe I can do that for him. I can go to Spain and just like do the research, and it was great. It was really special. And talking to people, we visited a couple of like ranches where they have like bulls, so that they're it was really intriguing and great experience.
I especially found the first part of the movie very emotional when he's a young bull, and so just the consequences that are kind of awaiting him in his adult life. And so I thought that was all handled really, really nicely. And the book itself, as I remember, is not a long book, right?
No.
So you probably had
Very,
to create
very.
so much new material to fill out a whole 90-minute feature. So can you talk about sort of that story process, like where you started, or what were the key moments you wanted to hold on to?
Is Ferdinand sitting down. Like that for me was the statement.
And the cork tree.
And the cork tree, of course, yeah. So those are the two key. So we, in a way, we kind of had like in our heads what the third act would be. So we kind of started a little bit backwards. We started animating actually, or storyboarding the end of the movie, and we started to work with in the moment that he sat down, and because that for me was the statement. Because the book is interpreted by many, people interpret in many different ways, but one of the main things about it is like the way that he kind of like is steadfast. He sits down. It's about peace, about non-violence, and not trying to, attack or just like. So we needed that moment to play. So we started boarding that way, and then we started to figure out like how to get to that emotional core, like how to capture that emotion all the way through it. And for people to understand, I think we needed to do a little bit of a backstory in the beginning, because it's a culture that people not familiar with. I was not familiar with, and I had to kind of like figure out a way just to really tell the story from the beginning. That is something that it's the same time there's a pride behind it, but also there is also a danger for both, for the matador and for the bull. So I needed to find that balance, But it all culminated to that moment that Ferdinand decided to sit down and not fight. That for me was
Well, he's such an empathetic character, and I mean, that's such a nice, you know. Do you want to talk about sort of the? Sorry, you looked at.
Oh, no, I was just going to say no, just about the character. This choosing to do, you know, some of the Act 1 when he was young is because we wanted to also, as Carlos said, we wanted to show that bull culture. This is all there is for bulls. You're a bull, you fight, and the whole idea behind it is the pacifist nature of these characters, or for anyone who thinks that they have to be what they are told to be because that's the way everyone else does it, to be able to stand up for yourself and say. It was a big message of the film, so I think we had to set up the bull culture to show that that's what bulls do, to show Ferdinand is not like that bull, and helps everyone else around him to stand up for themselves.
Absolutely. It's always been a really great, compassionate message, and especially now, it seems like a very pertinent film to make nowadays. So it's like I still love that, you know, he's got very little choice but just to be who he is at the end. I love that there's that sense of acceptance and peace at the end, which is
and he's a character that doesn't really change as much as, you know, most lead characters would. But he changes everyone around him and changes the world and the audience. So.
One thing that was, for me, was a turning point. Like, I always kind of had Ferdinand in my head in terms of his personality, how he would have to be and react. But I never quite, like, I was trying to find, like, how would he feel, you know, like, you know, being in his position. And actually, in the end of the trip to Spain, like, we went to, the last thing that we did was to go to Las Ventas, which is portrayed here in the movie, which is the mecca for the bullfighting, is the big stadium where the Coliseum kind of thing, where, you know, the bull goes in. So we walked in, I had the ticket, and it's like going to a football game. It's like everybody's happy, everybody's buying the souvenirs, everybody has the horns and the balloons, and everything was like, yeah, this is fun. We go in, and then it's like this, all this like tradition and all that. It was great, you know? And then the minute that the bull enters the ring, I just kind of like, my heart just kind of like went like pound. I couldn't stay. Because I saw myself on Ferdinand, and I says like, oh my gosh, like if I have to be in a place that I really don't want to be, and I don't understand why I'm put into this place, how would I feel? And that anxiety is what I remember keeping in my head all the way through the production, just because I really wanted to get to that moment and feel for that a character in a way. Because at the end, you don't see him as a bull, you see him as a human being. And then you see him going through that challenge. You know, for me, it was crucial to understand like the gravity or the power of standing up for who you really are and what you believe. And when you achieve that, that's the reward, you know, without fighting, which is the best part.
Really? And now, did you guys have a vision for who the voice would be early on? Like, how did you guys arrive at John?
We listened to a lot of voices, and we went a lot of different ways. But actually, Carlos was the one that came up with John Cena's voice. And when we listened to it, he was so right. Mm-hmm. And then when we met John, it was even more right, because he really embodied Ferdinand. I mean, he's this. He in fact, the story he told when he met us for the first time was that he was when he was young, he was kind of a scrawny kid, and he would get bullied, and he would get, you know, and so he decided he's going to, you know, build himself up, and he's going to do something about it. And obviously years later, no one would dare bully him anymore. But he felt what Ferdinand was going through. He felt it. So he embodied it so beautifully. Didn't you say?
All the way through it, you know, it was incredible. It's just this thing with animation, and once you find the voice that matches the character, or you find the voice that inspires you to animate that character, that's when you find that kind of like great power, you know. And then I needed somebody that, you know, the animators would listen to and be inspired by, and then really believe that they could do something great with acting. And John came in and was, you know, it was that kind of like magical moment. Like, he just really did it, and he was Ferdinand, you know, all the way through it.
And he's a big guy, obviously, but he's got such a great heart. And when you meet him, I mean, I would never have thought that, but he's just such a gentle soul. So he really was the Ferdinand character.
Yeah, it was a real surprise to me, because I knew of him, I knew of his act, but I wouldn't have thought of him as a voice.
Yeah, that was
Carlos. Yeah, that was the same thing. Like, it's one of those things, like, you don't expect it, and then you give it a shot, you give it a chance, and then it happens. You know, not always, but then in this case was like a perfect match. I felt the same way like when Rio, when I found Blue as the character. When Jesse Eisenberg walked in and he did the first line of the script, I was like, oh, we have our character right there. And this is the same thing happened with Ferdinand. Like when John came in and he read it, you know, that was it.
It's a funny thing because when you mentioned blue, and for me, like in the movies that you've done, my way in is often through the appeal of that main character. Because as soon as I saw the design for Blue, I was like, I was in, and I was
the same designer for Ferdinand.
Oh, for real? Yeah, it makes sense. Well, there's something about just the choices and the shapes, and just I thought Blue was just beautiful to watch. And I have friends who have owned macaws, and I thought it was a great, again, beautiful. 2D based caricature that has been brought beautifully to life in 3D, and so but again, the movie's beautiful. I love the message. I love Ferdinand, and congratulations on the nomination. Best of luck on Sunday. It's going to be amazing.
Thank you.
So thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Okay, here we go. Thanks, Carlos. Nice to meet you. Thanks, Laurie. Okay, now we're going to run the clip. I think this is our last clip for Loving Vincent. Okay, clip for Loving Vincent. Here we go. Thanks.
This is where he lived?
And where he died.
Dear Theo and Joe, it is really very beautiful here. I feel I see the north all the better for my trip to the south. I have settled down to some canvases, which I hope will go some way to recovering the costs of my stay. Dr. Gachet is eccentric. I don't know how he thinks he can cure me when he seems at least as sick as I am. However, I still think that what I have is mostly a melody of the South, and that the return here will be enough to dissipate the whole thing. The thing is, the days seem like weeks. The days seem like weeks to me. I'll be very glad if sometime from now you were to come here one Sunday with your family. Very hearty handshakes. Your loving, Vincent.
Oi! Come here! Dear Father, I'm still waiting to see the doctor. I could have just given the letter to the housekeeper or his daughter. But something happened with Vincent in that house. I can tell. I want to ask the doctor about it. I've decided to retrace the path that Vincent took with his easel that day, because what I've been told doesn't add up. And strange things are happening to me too. But don't worry, nothing that I can't handle. People here are on edge about Vincent, about what happened to him. Everyone has a different story. Tanguy, the paint supplier, said that Vincent shot himself in the field. So does the girl from the inn. It seems a very long way for him to have walked with a mortal wound. And I wonder if he wanted to kill himself, why didn't he just pick up the gun and finish the job? Did he change his mind? Did he want to live after all?
So please welcome to the stage filmmakers from Loving Vincent, Dorota Kobelia, Hugh Welshman, and Ivan McTaggart. Sorry about that. Come on up. Hi. They're the shoes. I love it. He has hand-painted shoes on, everyone. They're amazing. Hi, how are you? Come on up. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Come on up. Hi, come on up. Hi, congratulations. Come on in. So we didn't mention earlier, but after this is over, these guys very generously have donated one of the 65,000 oil paintings that you did for this feature to the Academy Museum, and it's on display outside. And I tell you, you guys have to check it out. It's going to be like the Mona Lisa out there. Everyone's going to be gathered around it. But when you see the size of it, it really speaks to the monumental task that this film must have been, because it's actual oil paint.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't actually have 65,000.
So you don't all get
So because for each shot in the film, we had a different canvas, and so we painted the first frame, and then we destroyed the painting and repainted over it on the same canvas until the last frame. So as we had 850 shots in the film, we have 850 paintings. So, you know, I mean, if we had 65,000, we would have given the Academy, you know, 5 or 10. So, but maybe we'll give you
still
one
very generous. It's still very generous. Well, it's amazing that so for each of those shots, what you're seeing is the very last frame of each of those.
Yeah, and so in a way, because you know, when we were editing the film, we absolutely never made a decision based upon how the painting would look. So you know, in some of them we fade to black, so we have black canvases, but they look quite good, some of them. And then you know, sometimes, very often, the character, you know, in editing leaves frame, so we have empty backgrounds. But sometimes you get very special looks, so it's a bit of luck of the draw.
It's incredible. I mean, when I saw this film, I'd heard about it, and I'd heard what you guys were doing and how much time it had taken. When I was in film school, there had been films like this, experimental films, but they were dealing with maybe a dissolve between two static shots. But you guys have your camera moving everywhere. There's constant motion and constant...
Well, there is that shot in the shot going into the Café Tambourin where Père Tanguy goes in among all of the paintings there, and it sort of cranes down behind him and follows him into the shot. And I remember you guys, because I was one step removed from the actual painting. I was in the UK, the painting was happening in Poland, talking to Hugh, and saying, okay, so that particular shot, we've got moving camera, so every frame pretty much is painted from scratch, and there was one painter working on that, asking you how long that was going to take, and it was 4 months, was it, for that painter?
Total 6, I think. Yeah. He took him.
And he was our fastest painter, so it took him 6 months. But yeah, I mean, in terms of moving camera, I mean, we wanted a lot more moving camera in there, but you know, the moving camera, so our average, because it's a pretty slow form of filmmaking, our average per animator was 1/3 of a second per day. But for the big moving camera shots, it actually took 2 weeks to do 1 second.
Wow, it's pretty incredible.
We were doing 12 frames per second, so it was 3.5 frames per day average. Yeah.
It really is remarkable. Now, when you can you talk about the origin of where the projects first came to life, like where you guys first thought about this is what we're going to do?
Yeah. Well, it started with Dorota 10 years ago before I met her. So, over to you.
Yeah, so 10 years ago I came up with the idea for short film, and I started working on it. I graduated from fine art, and I've been painting since I was 15, and I read Vincent's letters for the first time when I was 16, and so yeah, it was always the subject of art, of artists. It was very close to me, and I was a painter myself. And then I started working in animation and film, and felt that this part of my life suddenly kind of is like open chapter, and I wanted to. I didn't feel good about just leaving it behind with this 10 years of my life that was so important for me. So I wanted to combine these two passions, and then I decided to paint a film. So I was it was 7 minutes, and I wanted to paint it myself. I applied for the grant for it. I started working on it, but for then you have to wait 3 months for the production to start, for the money to be actually to receive the grant. So I had these 3 months, and I thought, okay, I have to do something. I can't just sit around and wait for it. So I went to. Hugh was working in Poland back then on another project, and I went to work for him. We met there, and that happened also that we fell in love there, and we just.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. So and we just sort of, I thought, okay, I'm just here for a while. I want to go back to do my own film. And he was like, what is your film? I was like, this is about Vincent van Gogh. And shocking and surprisingly, I don't know if I can say that.
You can.
Okay, so
humiliation by your wife in front of like 500 people.
So fine. No, he didn't know much about Vincent van Gogh, and I was like, for me, it was unbelievable. I was just
despite looking just like him.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's a little.
No.
This is what happens if you read 30 books about Vincent van Gogh and work on a film for 5 years.
One more year.
So I think actually that happened. There was this bar in Łódź, which is the city that was previously famous for the amazing cinematographer festival Camera Image. And anyways, there's film school, and it was always the animation city, and and it's famous from amazing bars also in Poland. So we went there and we spent all night, and I was over, I think, 10 shots of tequila, told him the whole journey of Vincent. And then Hugh came out of this bar, not the same night, because I don't think he was able to read the same night. But next day, he read every single book for the next couple years. He became really obsessed. And that was really amazing, because, I mean, obviously he started with the letters, and you always start with the letters, and I think that's the reason I wanted to make this film. It was the Vincent's letters.
Well, the thing beyond the amazing technique that you use to bring it to life, there's a really good detective story under there, which I was not expecting. And one of the things I was thinking earlier is, when I was a kid, I went to see Amadeus with my father, and it's still, to be honest, was my favorite movie, because it was someone who I thought, okay, here's this dusty old character who wrote music back in the 1700s, and I was like, I don't know who that is, but there was something about that film that humanized that character in Salieri. And I think your film does a very similar job in how you humanize Vincent, because I kind of knew the big stuff about Vincent, the ear and the suicide and all this, or what I thought was true, but the fact that it's so unknown was really fascinating.
Yeah, for me it was always important to break the kind of the stereotype of the mad genius, and that's not how I read him from the letters. And I realized that he was so well read, incredible amount of books, and he spoke multi languages, like 5. Was incredibly hardworking, and it wasn't just a stroke of genius that created all of this art, because And you know, he had like photographic memory. He could see Rembrandt 2 years later. He would describe the painting in the letters. So all of these things for me, I saw him in a certain way, and I felt that it's important to contribute this to his story, you know, to kind of take away this mad genius who just like, you know, slaps paint. And no, it's just very meticulous work, he actually really felt it, and he actually really thought this through.
Well, so, I mean, it's very inspiring. I mean, one of the things that really hooked me into the story was the fact that, you know, you always assume, like with Mozart, it was the case, or Chopin, or, Leonardo da Vinci, that people are born geniuses and that's just how it is, you know, and then it comes out of them at some point. And with Vincent, you know, he actually failed miserably at 3 careers in his 20s. He was written off by his family as a black sheep, and they really didn't know what to do with him. And he was in very severe depression, and yet he managed to find the power and the will within himself to try something new. He started drawing at 27, started painting at 29, and by 37, you know, he'd really transformed art forever after. And you know, that was through just incredible passion, hard work, and also I think because he wasn't very good at communicating with people in the flesh. You know, you'd probably have a hard time interviewing him right now. But you know, and that frustrated him so much because he had so much in his heart, and so really that comes out in his art. It's very personal, it's very passionate, and that's why he was unknown in his lifetime, but he's been inspiring people ever since, and that resonates with a lot of people.
It really does. And I mean, it feels like, to your point, like the fact that you can see that he struggled with art, and I always thought he should sort of be the patron saint of art students, because those drawings that he did early on where he's not very good yet, like you can tell he's having a lot of trouble, and then there is that transcendent moment where he really starts to find himself. And I think I saw Starry Night in the Modern Museum of Modern Art in New York, and to stand so close to something that it's almost immortal. Like I couldn't believe I was actually seeing it. I was inches away from it where you could see the paint strokes, and to know that he had created that, he just is so different and transcendent, and it's just a remarkable story. And you also have a pretty remarkable story about. Can you talk a little bit about Ivan, the Kickstarter? Like this was largely kind of kicked into.
Yeah, this was so at the beginning of the process, a decision was taken that to try and raise some money on Kickstarter for development and painter training. And the feeling always was from the beginning that, in fact, all the way through the process, I think the challenge we had with this film was that we always believed that audiences liked it and wanted to see it and were excited by it and wanted to see something original. And whenever we went to the industry in the main operates on the basis that tell me a film exactly the same as this that already made a ton of money. And so we were going to people and they were saying, okay, what are the comps? And we'd say there are no comps, and they'd go, well, thanks for your time, bye. But we had a great reaction on the internet. A lot of people very interested, and people, you know, what people are like on the internet, if they like something, they really like it in capitals. So there was a lot of that going on, and
caps lock.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And we felt that like this is the most awesome thing they've ever seen in their entire existence. And so we felt that it made sense to go to those people. So we put a Kickstarter up to raise some money. In fact, we set our target slightly high, didn't we? And we failed, so we just put it up again the next day with a slightly lower target. And then we raised £56,000 of money for painter training. And in fact, so that worked out well in terms of raising some cash to start the process, but it also created the sort of germ of a community of people who were very much behind the film, who wanted to see it happen. So much so that when we later on were raising production finance for the film, we went out to that community and we got a couple of investors, one of whom's here tonight actually, who were very significant, very important contributors to the film, both financially but also in terms of just their heartfelt backing for the film in all kinds of ways. And we've been very fortunate in that engaging yourself in such a mad endeavor sets quite a high hurdle for the people that are going to be involved. Like, people either didn't get it or they really, really loved it. And so everybody that's been involved in this, from the painters to the actors to our distributors, our sales agents, all of those, our financiers, have been real advocates of the project. And it's been really exciting and inspiring to see that, as we always believed from the beginning, people actually do want to see something different. They want to see something they haven't seen before. And if they find that, they'll really, really get behind it.
I imagine, I mean, like talking about your passionate connection with Vincent from early on, I imagine for painters who are being trained for this project, people who felt an innate connection to his work, and then getting the opportunity to work on something where, you know, for maybe years they're going to get to try to paint like Vincent. Was that, how did you go about the process of finding 125 people who could paint like Van Gogh, or how did you go about training them so they could paint like Van Gogh?
We actually had, first we started with Polish crew, with very small amount of painters, and we really focused on training them in animation. But on some point, because as Ivan mentioned, the financing took much longer than we expected. So at some point we had the same deadline and less done because we had a smaller crew. So on some point we had to actually expand the crew to the number that was like 100 painters, and we did but that moment, that was I think 4 years ago, when we did when we tried to find more painters. That was a very interesting moment and actually groundbreaking for the whole project, because we put on our recruitation website, we put this little video with little teaser, so painters could know what they're getting into and what it is. And someone actually took that video off our website and posted it on their Facebook. That was a fan club of one of the actors. And I got a phone call from my friend who says, "Congratulations on your viral trailer, like 2 million views." And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, at this time, Dorota had no Facebook, and I hadn't looked at Facebook for 6 months. And then suddenly, people from my primary school are phoning me up, and, I'm going, what's going on? And then finally one of my friends said, I think you should log into your Facebook. And so we had, as Dorota said, we had 2 million views within the first couple of days, and we actually had 200 million views within 3 months.
That's incredible.
And so there were a lot of things happened from this, and one of it was the painters. We actually had 5,000 new applications from around the world.
It's amazing.
So including, from paintings in America, and we have one of our American painters in the audience, and they got on planes. And
because they had to do sort of a casting for a painter. They had to do a test,
so we had auditions in Poland, and they had to do a 3-day audition in Poland to be considered for the project. And so we only invited people who we thought were going to get in, because it's a long way to go for an audition.
Yeah, seriously.
But we were really shocked that people just bought one-way tickets and decided that
they're just stuck. Well, I got to do something.
But I think it's also I had so many painters reacting like, is that a prank, or what is this, like, job for a painter as an artist painter? How is that gonna work?
Yeah, a lot of them thought it was some kind of funny viral ad, because, and they contacted us and you really want painters? Yeah. It's a job for us. Real.
But we ended up, how many countries was it in the end we had painters from?
21.
21 countries, and 61% women, was it? We had painters.
Yeah.
So it was a really fantastic, diverse group.
It really is. I mean, I got to say, it is a jaw-dropping achievement, which you guys have done. So congratulations on the nomination to all three of you. And so once again, the filmmakers from Loving Vincent. But don't go anywhere. You guys stay here, because we're going to bring all the filmmakers up for a final set of questions before we wrap up. Again, be sure to check out the Loving Vincent frame out in the hallway once you get outside, folks. So stay here for a second. We're going to have people come around us and put chairs. Might have to get up here. Hold on for a few seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, the filmmakers. So I'm just going to throw this to all of you, and please feel free to just pep up. Like, why do you guys work in animation? Like, why animation versus live action or some other medium? What is it about animation that's special to you, that draws you to the medium?
I love that you get to change your mind all the time. And you can make a mistake and then go back the next day and say, can we actually change that again? And, you know, because if in live action you couldn't do that, you'd have to, you know, reshoot, which I don't think is possible. So, you know, it suits somebody with a slow brain like mine, I think, you know, too.
You're right. It's very long term, isn't it? I think all of us on this panel, you guys were talking about the length of time that you guys spend on your projects versus other medium where you can get through something in a couple months. But like you folks have spent years doing this, and so that's incredible.
Well, I think Darla hinted on it too. It's like there's so many versions that you really don't want to show anybody, you know, early on, and it's the joy of, I think, not only working with so many talented artists, storyboard artists, you know, and based off the script and changing it and making it better, and you get to make the film before you make the film. And which is, you know, a lot of us, I'm sure, like, will throw out entire sequences because they don't work anymore or they don't fit. And so you can watch it in drawings, like you were saying, Byron, like a comic book, and really hone it in and dial it in and get it to a place where then you bring on the hundreds of people and just kind of keep plussing it down the line.
There's I'm sorry.
You go, Glory.
There's such a luxury of time to develop. I mean, so much. You can watch the film evolve because it's a period of 4 or 5 years, and you can actually have time to change it, as you say. But it's also about not having to rush a story through just because you have to, because you're on a time constraint. And usually you have the time to develop properly. We have a lot of writers. Tim Federley, who's here with us today, our writer. We have so many writers who just continue to write all through the entire process. So it's not like a live action film where you have to shoot that script.
Well, I mean, for me, I actually hate the fact it takes so long. You know, and I before I was doing painting animation, I was doing puppet animation, and I managed to find a form of filmmaking that was even slower than puppet animation.
So what's next?
So yeah,
Painting.
Sculptures. I think.
Painting every frame.
A marble sculpture that actually.
But you know, when I went to film school, I mean, I went to film school to do live action, and never crossed my mind to do animation. And then we were given this option at my film school. To produce an animation as well as a live action. And what really struck me is just how good animators are as filmmakers, because, you know, compared to other areas where they start off, they tend to make the entire film themselves, and so they tend to be really good at editing, really good at story, and they also have to be artists as well. So I was just really attracted by animators and how knowledgeable they were about all the different processes. And you know, in live action, you can sometimes have quite a lot of drama going on behind the camera instead of in front of the camera, whereas in animation, it tends to be more about, you know, the art and the story.
That's a really good. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it's such a team sport in that way, and you walk in the door every day, and there are so many brilliant artists, and all their art is on the walls, and everything they do every day is exhilaratingly inspiring, truly. And so that's and working with it's so collaborative.
That's true.
And so.
Well, and you bring up a good point, too, because I didn't think about it until you just said this, but where most animators start is sort of by themselves, drawing or painting or maybe doing CG. So it's very isolated, but then to come into these communities, these studios, or to become more like one of 125 painters working in multiple countries around the world to produce something that's a collaborative art form. I think it's a very unique thing. So whatever we have that draws us to animation in the first place, the big surprise to me is how much I loved working with these 800 or 900 people around me, and how much of a family they become over this long period of time as you're evolving these very difficult stories to tell.
One quick thing that one thing that I love the most about animation is the fact that you can go really deep in terms of emotions and every kind of emotion. Like, and people forget you're doing animation, and that's one thing that I always attract me to animation was the fact, like, how can I tell a story? How can I create a moment emotionally satisfying, but with characters that could look a little goofy, like little animals, and so that's the stuff that I always attract me to it. And it's like I always think that we make movies for adults that we can bring the kids along, because I really feel that, it's the kind of stuff that in all layers, you can bring your family and everybody will get a different kind of emotion, and you can get away with a lot. We can get away with comedy, we can get away with the nuance, we can get away with, because people are looking at a cartoon, but they're feeling the right emotions. So I love that.
That's great.
I agree with everyone here. I love animation because you have so much time to hone in and work on your rich story. But I've worked in live action as well, and live action is short and quick, and you work with crews that once they get their job, they're looking for their next one. And what I really love about working on an animated film is that you're working together for 4 to 6 years, and you're really spending, living life together and passionately focused on the same thing. And it's just an extraordinary community of artists that doesn't exist in live action.
No, it doesn't seem to. I mean, it is really, really unique. I really do appreciate that. Like, at every studio I've ever visited has been the same way. You get that same feeling about these gregarious, familial people who, like, if I meet someone from another animation studio, I feel like I know them, or like I've never really met you in person, Carlos, but I feel like I kind of know you. Like, I know you from the past, but I feel like we all kind of belong together. And like for the producers here, can I ask you, was there ever a moment where you felt like this isn't really going to work, or I can't do this, or this is ridiculous, I'm at the end of my rope, or
I should ask Bruce, my
all
producing partner. Yeah, how many times did we say that? Yes, a lot of times. But I think you trust, and I think it was it Ramsey? It was one of you, Darla or Ramsey, who said that you just try many times, and you don't. Yeah, it was Darla, that you can't show it, and you referenced that you can't show it too early because it goes through so many incarnations, so many evolutions, and it really, sometimes 8 months before the movie's due, that's when the movie comes together. So you've been working on it for 4 or 6 years, but 8 months before, for some reason, the 8th month before the movie is when things just all come together and everything tends to work.
Yeah, there was a very, for Andrew and I on the Aircraft Picture side, not having come from animation before and then partnering with Cartoon Saloon and Melusine Productions. So, Tom and Paul and Nora had a very steady hand throughout the whole process, and Andrew and I kind of went through various phases of like, what do you mean we're locking the picture now? Like, we're just getting started, but can we change something later if it doesn't work out? Because all we're seeing are this is animatic with these little scratchy drawings on it and an arrow pointing this way, and so there was a big learning curve for us on the project, but I think it speaks to having that trust with your partners and your team from the very beginning, and knowing that you're both working together to make the same project from the very beginning, and then that made it a lot easier.
I mean, generally speaking, I tend to be that optimistic type producer that, of course, there's going to be, like even way back on A Bug's Life, I remember people freaking out, and is it going to get done? I'm like, yes, there will be a movie. It will have bugs in it.
And it did.
It did.
There were a lot of bugs.
There were a lot of bugs.
Blue ones and pink ones.
So I just tend to be that optimistic producer that, of course, we're gonna have a film, and it'll just be as good as it can be, and I know, really. I mean, I know, as you really have faith that it's going to be great. Honestly.
If the producers don't have faith, then then you're lost.
Faith is everything.
Yeah. That is surely the producer's job. It's absurd optimism in the face of all indications.
It's absolutely
to the
ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, it's like in your first movie, like you have to prove everything, But then as you go through the productions, I think that working with producers, luckily I've been fortunate to have amazing producers that have been working with me for many years, but it's like trusting the process is important, because it's gonna get made. As Orla was saying, yes, it will be made, and will probably be great, but you gotta trust the process. It's not gonna be immediate, you gotta really allow the movie to take a life. You know?
I do appreciate that. The best producers I've ever met in animation they have this great sense of stability, and they'll go through the madness with you. And I think there's a comfort in seeing someone go crazy right next to you.
Oh yeah.
So a great compliment to all you guys. What excites you? I have a very specific question that Bill Croyer's students have for you. But before I ask you that, what excites you about the future of animation? Because what I thought was great about all of your films is that you have a high technology, you have great CG, and you also have this traditional oil painting working its way back in, and the paper technology that went into the CG in Breadwinner, and the blend of all these different media is so exciting to see. Is there something you're looking forward to, or your hope that this medium goes to in the next 10 or 20 years?
I definitely want to break out of the family ghetto. You know, I mean, in terms of animation, I love family films, but, you know, that we can apply animation in so many more ways. And, you know, Loving Vincent's definitely an adult film, and it's appealed to an adult audience. And we need more films like that to reach adult audiences so that we break through that barrier and be considered for different genres. And, you know, next we want to do a painted horror film on Goya. And
that's good.
That'd be a good one. Kickstarter.
Start now.
I'd go see that. I love Goya.
It's exciting. I think like back in the 80s, I think before Roger Rabbit, you could work on He-Man. Or I think Brad Bird was doing Amazing Stories. But, you know, in the classes, like there's CalArts in Sheridan, there's probably like 30 people a class. And now there's like 4,000 schools all over the country. And the cool thing is, like, out of 30 people, there's probably 3 girls. And maybe one of them would end up graduating. And you go to a school like Ringling now in Florida, it's 50-50. And you were saying you were pretty much 50-50 on making your film. And it's just like there's going to be a whole new talent rise coming up because people have stories to tell. And it used to be kind of this isolated little weirdo club that people that just used to draw on their, instead of doing homework, kind of got into. But now
there's
like
thousands of weirdos.
Yeah, there's a lot of people with stories to tell. But students will come up and they'll show you a 15-minute film they did on their own or with some help, and it's just as good as anything. And you're going, how, you know.
Yeah, and it starts with those flip books you do as a kid. It's just so empowering to be able to sit down and bring something to life. And you're right. It's like I was thinking the same thing because, like, when I was going to school in the '80s, you know, the animation before Roger Rabbit and the kind of that Disney revival was very tenacious. Like, you weren't sure if it was going to stick around, but to see the vibrancy that all of you bring to the art form now is great. And like I visited China last year, and to see how much hunger there is, not just for animated films, but for the learning of the animation craft, and how many different studios are opening up over there, and how worldwide it's getting with the advent of technology is really exciting. So anyone else about future of animation? What do you think?
I find it interesting. How do you even define animation anymore? I mean, why is War of the Planet of the Apes not here with us, you know, with the amount of animation that's in it, or, you know, so that's interesting. The borders are breaking down, whether they be you know, the definition of animation itself, or physical borders between, you know, people working together from all around the world, which is, you know, really amazing. So just seeing that yeah, students can educate themselves online for nothing now as well, you know, kind of the amount of information, whereas I used to go and photocopy, you know, pieces of you know, books and that, you know, kind of thing, and folders up to here. So all of that is limitless in ways, but oftentimes real creativity comes with putting limits on yourself and putting, you know, some kind of definitions on things. Say with the story world, some of the innovation and that didn't come from, you know, we can do everything. It's like, how can we limit ourselves right down so that it becomes something quite specific? So the disciplines, I guess, are also what's interesting about the future of animation.
That's great. So the question that Bill Croyer's students wanted me to ask you is, it's very specific. If you could create an episode of Black Mirror that featured animation, what would it be? Wow. Let's put you on the spot. And they're going to write it all down.
Then we pause.
Then we pause. Like,
not get about earlier on where, like, the slow brain thing. Like, I'll come back to you tomorrow.
It's been a long week. But And how have you guys been experiencing this whole lead up to the Oscars? It's fairly surreal for everyone who's gone through it. I believe. Like, has anything surprised you about the process of being nominated, or kind of like rolling into the awards on Sunday?
I just have to say, because it's the first time we were nominated, and not Cartoon Saloon, but Aircraft, and I just am so impressed with the Academy and how well they've treated us, and it's been such an inclusive, amazing experience. I mean, from the Oscar nominee luncheon, where you really kind of get a sense of community and kind of brothers and sisters in arms of trying to create and getting recognized at this level. They really made us feel like, who cares what happens on March 4th? It's like you guys have kind of
the whole of Poland cares.
They worked very hard on those paintings.
Like it's been really a fantastic process, to feel like up until that time, that it's been really just really generous and really lovely to be.
It is a really, I mean, that's one thing I will say about, before I knew about the Academy or belonged to it, one thing that did strike me about this organization, it was very much the same way as animation studios. It's like, this is a bunch of people who are craftspeople who believe in what they do, who come together to celebrate other craftspeople and other artists. And so it's remarkable. Do you guys have any last words before we wrap you guys up? Any final thoughts?
Can we go back to the Black Mirror thing?
Oh, you have an idea? Oh, wait, he's got an idea. Wait, write it down.
He's got a pitch.
No, it's interesting where things are going with virtual reality and stuff. And I think the big head scratcher is how do we make movies? How do you cut? How do you tell a story and people find stories? And there's this whole new terrain that's going out there, and with goggles, and you just see Snapchat, and people have these. We're getting this place where there's avatars, and we're all going to wear Google glasses, and I'd be Mickey Mouse, and you would be Voltron or something, and we'd be looking at everyone. And
yeah, I would. I'd be Voltron.
And we all going to get stuck in that world. That's Black Mirror.
See, that's good.
No, but I think the Black Mirror for animation, I think and everyone says this, oh, you're in animation? Don't they do that with computers? And it's well, no, there's artists behind it, and everyone works with all these artists. And I think the day that a computer, you can feed the Storytron 5000 a story, and it'll spit out a perfect, intelligent film based on numbers and formulas and stuff. That's a scary Black Mirror, in a way. So as long as there's artists, then we can keep the computers at bay.
Awesome. Well, on that, once again, congratulations, because I have such a huge amount of respect for everyone on this panel. Have a wonderful time this weekend. It's going to be amazing. And
great job tonight, by the way. Big hand.
Thank you.
Big hand for
Who needs those guys?
Yeah.
They're fine. They can get sick. Thank you guys for coming. And again, congratulations. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. The filmmakers, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.